My son called his mother deadweight the night she was admitted to the ICU. He said it quietly, almost to himself, standing in the hospital parking lot while I was still close enough to hear every word. He didn't know I was there. Or maybe he did and just didn't care anymore. I've spent 4 months trying to decide which one is worse. The leather chair by the front window had been mine for 30 years. Every Sunday morning, coffee, newspaper, that same chair. The night I'm talking about, I sat in it for 2 hours without turning on a single light. Outside, November rain came down in sheets against the glass. The grandfather clock in the hallway kept marking time the way it always does, indifferent to everything. I had my phone in my hand, my son's name on the screen. I'd been staring at it since I got home from the hospital. His name is Marcus. I pressed dial. 4 rings, then his voicemail. Hey, it's Marcus. Leave one. I hung up, called again. This time he picked up on the 3rd ring. Dad. Not hello. Not how is she. Just my name. Flat and impatient. Background noise behind him. Something metal, like a restaurant kitchen. I'm calling about your mother. Yeah. Long pause. What about her? She's asking for you. I heard him exhale. Dad, I told you. I can't just drop everything every time she has an episode. This isn't an episode, Marcus. She's in intensive care. Her kidneys are failing. Silence. Then quieter. Is it serious? That's what intensive care means. Look, I've got a thing this weekend. Nashville. Brent's bachelor party. It's been planned for months. I stood up from the chair. Couldn't stay sitting. Your mother is on a ventilator, and you're telling me about a bachelor party. She's been sick for 2 years, Dad. I can't put my entire life on hold for 2 years. Nobody asked you to put your entire life on hold. I kept my voice level by sheer force. We're asking you to drive 4 hours and sit with her. I'll come when things settle down a little. What does that mean? It means I'll come when I can. She might not be there when you can. He said nothing. Marcus, I heard you, Dad. Then what are you going to do? He said he'd think about it. He didn't come that weekend. He didn't come the weekend after that either. My wife's name is Lorraine. We met in 1981 at a faculty mixer at the University of Illinois. She was a librarian. I was an adjunct professor of American literature. She wore a green dress and argued with a department chair about Steinbeck for 20 minutes. I knew by the end of that conversation. We got married 18 months later. We had Marcus in 1986. He was wanted. He was loved. He had everything. Room 14 inches, the ICU smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Lorraine had tubes running in 3 directions. The machines around her bed beeped in a rhythm I'd learned to read like a second language. Low numbers bad, high numbers worse. Certain sounds meant call the nurse immediately. I'd learned all of it in the first week. She opened her eyes around 10 in the morning, 2 days after the call, with Marcus. She looked at me the way she always did, like I was the only steady thing in the room. Did you eat? Her voice came through the oxygen mask, muffled and slow. I had coffee. That isn't eating, Robert. I smiled, despite everything. There it was. Even in intensive care, Lorraine was monitoring my nutrition. Marcus called, I said. The lie came out smooth, practiced. I'd been telling it for 8 days. He sends his love. Work is overwhelming right now. Big project. She watched my face. She'd been watching my face for 43 years. She knew when I was reading aloud from a text I believed, and when I was making something up as I went. He's coming though, right? She asked. Of course. Soon, she let it go. She always let things go when she could tell I needed her to. That was Lorraine. She absorbed other people's pain to protect them from having to show it. I took her hand. Her wedding ring was loose now. She'd lost 22 pounds since August. I read to her that morning. She liked poetry. Mary Oliver mostly. I'm not much of a poetry person, but I'd memorized 3 of them because she loved them. I read the one about wild geese. Her eyes were closed by the 4th line, but her hand stayed warm in mine. On the way out, Dr. Anand caught me in the hallway. Mr. Calloway, do you have a few minutes? It wasn't a question. We walked to a small room near the nursing station. He closed the door, which told me everything before he said a word. The dialysis isn't holding the way we hoped. He kept his voice careful and even. Her kidneys aren't recovering. We need to start thinking about palliative options. How long? He hesitated. 6 weeks if things stay where they are, less if she has another infection. 6 weeks. I said it back to him like maybe the number would change. I know. He sat across from me. I'm sorry. Is your family nearby? My son is in Cincinnati. You should call him. I nodded. I kept nodding long after Dr. Anand stood up and shook my hand and left. I sat in that little room for 15 minutes looking at a poster on the wall about hand washing. 6 weeks. I did the math automatically. 6 weeks was the second week of January. Lorraine had always loved Christmas. She decorated the entire house the first weekend of December. Every year, same boxes from the attic, same ornaments going on the same branches, same argument between us about whether the star or the angel went on top. She always won. It was always the angel. I called Marcus from the parking garage. The doctor spoke to me today, I said. And he's saying 6 weeks, maybe less. Long silence. I need you to come, Marcus. Not someday. This week. Dad, His voice changed register. I'm dealing with some things right now. Financially, things are tight, and the drive is, I'll pay for gas. I'll pay for a hotel. Name what you need. It's not about money. Then what is it about? He said it was complicated. He said Lorraine, and he had history I didn't fully understand. He said his therapist had been working with him on not letting himself get pulled into other people's emotional emergencies. He said that last part, and I had to pull the phone away from my ear for a moment because I didn't trust what I would say. Your mother, I said when I put it back, is not an emotional emergency. She is your mother. She is dying. Those are two different things. Dad, come this weekend, Marcus. I'll try. He didn't try. Nashville was that weekend. I know because the posts started Friday morning. I found out through my niece Patricia, who showed me on her phone in the hospital cafeteria, because Marcus had blocked me sometime in the previous year without mentioning it. I hadn't even known until that moment. The first post was a group photo. 6 men in a hotel lobby in matching shirts that said, Brent's Last Rodeo, in rhinestones. Marcus in the center, arm around Brent, grinning like he'd just won something. Patricia watched my face as I scrolled. Uncle Robert, she said quietly. I handed the phone back without a word. That was November 14th. I sat with Lorraine for 9 hours that day. I read her 2 chapters of Lonesome Dove because she'd always wanted to finish it, and we'd never gotten around to it. She laughed twice during the reading, which felt like a gift I hadn't earned. That evening, I drove home, changed my clothes, made soup I didn't eat, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open for a long time before I opened it. I'd been a literature professor for 31 years before I retired. I'd read more words than most people ever would. I knew something about consequences, about how a story's ending is made entirely by its middle, by the choices the characters make when they think no one is watching. Marcus thought no one was watching. I searched for estate attorneys in Springfield. The first 3 names meant nothing to me. The fourth was Diane Wakefield, who had handled my mother's estate back in 2009. Sharp, direct, no nonsense. I remembered her well. I wrote her name on the yellow legal pad next to my coffee cup. Beneath it I wrote Monday morning, 9 a.m. Beneath that I wrote what I intended to change and why. The house on Birchwood Drive was worth $310,000. I'd had it appraised last spring. Joint savings. $280,000, built slowly over 43 years of 2 modest incomes and careful choices. Life insurance. $50,000. Lorraine's pension survivor benefit. Modest but steady. Total, roughly $640,000. Marcus had never asked about any of it directly, but I wasn't naive. He knew it existed. He'd made a comment at Easter 2 years ago about real estate prices in our neighborhood. Offhand, almost casual, I'd filed it away. I opened a fresh page of the legal pad and wrote slowly. Lorraine's name on something that would outlast both of us. She'd spent 37 years as a librarian, 37 years helping people find things. Books, yes, but also information, direction, a quiet place to think when the world outside got too loud. She believed in literacy the way some people believe in God. She tutored kids after hours without being asked. She drove to the county jail twice a month for 8 years to run a reading program nobody funded and nobody covered in any newspaper. She just did it because she thought it mattered. A fund that bought books for underserved school libraries. That was what I wrote down. Something with her name on it that would put books into the hands of children who didn't have them. Something she would have done herself if she'd had the money. I closed the laptop at 11:15, left the legal pad on the table, went upstairs, slept 4 hours. Monday morning I called Diane Wakefield. Her assistant put me through in under 2 minutes. Diane's voice was exactly as I remembered it. Efficient, warm underneath, but not soft. "Robert Calloway," she said. "It's been years. I need to change my will." I said it without preamble. Completely. Brief pause. "When can you come in?" "Today, if possible." Her office was on the 15th floor of a building downtown. I rode the elevator up, watching the numbers change. I had the folder under my arm, the same one I'd packed that morning. Bank statements, property deed, the existing will, a printed copy of Marcus's Nashville Post that I'd asked Patricia to send me. Diane stood when I came in. Silver hair now, same sharp eyes. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Tell me what you need." "I need to disinherit my son." I said it the way you say something you've already said 100 times in your head. Completely. Nothing. Not a dollar. She leaned back slightly. "You understand that's permanent." "I understand perfectly. Tell me why." I opened the folder, put the Instagram printout on her desk first. Nashville, November 14th. His mother is in intensive care that day. He's in a hotel lobby in a rhinestone shirt at his friend's bachelor party. She looked at it, then looked at me. I slid the next printout across. November 15th. A bar somewhere on Broadway, live music, beer raised toward the camera. Caption: Nashville Nights. Can't beat it. Then the one from the 16th. Brunch at some rooftop place, mimosas, eggs, Benedict, sunglasses, Sunday morning ease. And the texts. I showed her those too. November 9th. I texted, "Mom's doctor says 6 weeks, maybe less. Please come this weekend." His reply, 2 hours later, heard. "I'll see what I can do." Nothing after that. November 12th. I texted, "She asked for you again today." He replied, "I know, Dad. It's complicated." Diane set down the papers. She took off her reading glasses. She looked at the wall for a moment. "I knew this young man," she said quietly. "You brought him to my office once, years ago. Your mother's estate." "He was 23 then," I said. "I don't know who he is now." She nodded slowly. "What do you want to do with the estate?" "Books," I said. "Lorraine's name on it. School libraries in low-income districts. Something real, something lasting, something she would have done herself." Diane pulled her keyboard close. "Illinois allows complete disinheritance," she said. "Explicit intentional language makes it essentially challenge-proof. We can execute today if you want." "I want." She typed for a long time, asked questions. I answered them. The room was quiet except for the keyboard and occasional traffic sounds from 15 floors down. Outside the windows, November had turned everything gray and bare. The lake was steel-colored in the distance. The documents took 40 minutes to draft. Diane read them aloud. "I, Robert Calloway, being of sound mind, intentionally make no provision for my son Marcus Calloway. This is deliberate and not an oversight. The entirety of my estate is directed to establish the Lorraine Calloway Library Fund, a charitable organization providing books and reading materials to underfunded school libraries in central Illinois." She looked up. "Once you sign this, it's binding. Are you certain?" My hand was steady when I picked up the pen. "More certain than I've been of anything in years." I signed. Her assistant and a paralegal witnessed. Diane notarized it with the embosser, and the crunch of that seal was the most final sound I'd ever heard. She handed me the sealed copies in a manila envelope. "Is there anything else you want him to know?" she asked. "A letter to be read when the will is executed." I dictated it while she wrote. "Marcus, by the time you read this, your mother is gone. She asked for you every day. You did not come. You were in Nashville when I called you. You called her complicated. You used the word burden once in a parking lot. thinking I couldn't hear you. I could. Everything that was ours is now hers, in the only way that's left. The children who receive books through the Lorraine Calloway Library Fund will know more about love than you did at the end. Your father, Robert. Diane sealed it herself, attached it to the will with a paperclip. I rode the elevator down alone. In the lobby, I buttoned my coat, pushed through the glass door into the November cold, stood on the sidewalk for a moment, feeling the weight of the envelope against my chest. Something was done now that could not be undone, and I felt, for the first time in weeks, like I could breathe all the way to the bottom of my lungs. The posts kept coming. Patricia showed me, because I'd asked her to, because I needed to see, because evidence was the only language I had left. November 22nd. Marcus at a Bengals game. Blue and orange in the stands, hot dog, beer, game day. His caption, "Nothing like a Sunday with the boys." November 26th. Thanksgiving. Not with us. A table full of people I didn't recognize, Brent and his fiancée at the head. Marcus in the corner, wine glass raised. Grateful for these people. Family isn't always blood. I read that caption sitting beside Lorraine's bed. I did not show it to her. She'd asked me at Thanksgiving, our Thanksgiving, which was just the two of us in her hospital room with a piece of pie Patricia had brought, whether Marcus had called. I said he'd texted. She nodded and looked out the window for a while. I watched her face. "He loves you," I said, because I didn't know what else to say, because the truth would have taken something from her she needed to keep. "I know," she said, in the way she said everything, like she was carrying the full weight of it and had decided to carry it lightly for everyone else's sake. December 3rd. Marcus at a work holiday party. Suit, tie, champagne, the kind of professional smile he'd perfected somewhere in his 30s. December 7th. I texted, "She's stopped eating solid food. The doctor has adjusted her medication. Please come, Marcus. It can't wait anymore." He replied 4 hours later, "I'll try to get there before Christmas." I screenshot it, added it to the folder. December 9th. Marcus posted a photo of his apartment living room, decorated for Christmas. White lights, a tree in the corner, presents already underneath it. "Cozy season," the caption said. That same day, Lorraine couldn't hold a conversation for more than 10 minutes before the exhaustion took her under. I kept reading to her. We finished Lonesome Dove. She smiled when I closed it. We started on Marilyn Robinson because she'd always said she would get to Gilead eventually. I read her the opening pages, and she reached for my hand without opening her eyes. Her sister Connie drove up from Memphis on December 11th. She sat with Lorraine for 2 hours and came out into the hallway with red eyes and gripped my arm without speaking. Then she said, "Where is Marcus?" And I didn't answer. And she understood. Mrs. Heller from next door brought food to the house twice a week. Soups, casseroles, bread she baked herself. She never asked about Marcus directly, but the second time she came, she said, "I saw your boy hasn't been by," real quiet, like she was hoping she was wrong. I told her he was very busy. She looked at me for a long moment, with the eyes of a woman who had buried a husband and raised 4 children and knew exactly what very busy meant. "I'm sorry, Dewey," she said, and then corrected herself, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Robert. I always mix up names." "It's fine," I told her. December 14th. Marcus posted a photo at a weekend ski trip. Vermont, snow-covered mountain in the background, poles raised, goggles up, grinning. He looked exactly like himself at 22. He looked healthy and happy and 1,000 miles from anything that cost him anything. I printed it, added it to the folder. December 18th. Lorraine could no longer stay conscious for more than 2 or 3 hours at a stretch. Dr. Anand called it a transition. I called it a countdown. I texted Marcus. "The doctor says days now, not weeks, days. Please, if you are going to come, come now." He read it. The little checkmark showed he'd read it. He did not reply for 6 hours. Then, "I'm trying to work something out. I'll let you know." I sat in Lorraine's room and held her hand and read her Oliver again, the one about the summer day, about paying attention, about being astonished and telling about it. She didn't wake, but her fingers tightened slightly around mine, and I chose to believe she heard. December 21st. The winter solstice. The longest night. I drove home at 10, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table. The Christmas boxes were still in the attic. I hadn't brought them down. Couldn't. Not without her. The folder sat on the table. 31 printouts. 0 calls to the hospital. 3 text exchanges. All of them versions of the same brush-off wrapped in different language. I opened the folder and read through it once, the way you read through a case you're about to present. Methodical, clinical. Each post, each date, each caption. The rhinestone shirt, the rooftop brunch, the ski slopes of Vermont, the Christmas tree surrounded by wrapped presents for people who were not his dying mother. I closed the folder. He would be home for the holidays. He'd mentioned it back in October, before everything got where it was. Said he'd come for a few days around Christmas. He still might, but whatever he found when he walked through that door would not be what he expected. I went upstairs and unlocked the study. Desk, bookshelves, the old leather chair by the window that had been my reading chair for 20 years. I opened the desk drawer and took out the envelope Diane had given me, held it for a moment. Then I went down the hall to Marcus's old room. He stayed here when he visited, which had not been since the previous Easter. The room still had traces of his growing up everywhere. Track ribbons from high school on the corkboard. A shelf of paperbacks he'd read at 15, 16. A photo of the 3 of us at the Grand Canyon from 1998 when he was 12. Squinting into the light, Lorraine's arm around him, mine around her. I placed the envelope in the center of the bed, white against the blue quilt, impossible to miss. I left the door halfway open so the hallway light spilled in. Went downstairs, made coffee. Saturday. I was still there 3 days later when the hospital called. December 24th. Lorraine's condition changed rapidly that afternoon. I was already on my way when my phone rang. I drove the 35 minutes knowing the way you know things before the words arrive. Parked badly. Walked fast. Pressed the elevator button 4 times. Room 14. Connie was already there. She'd come back down from Memphis 2 days earlier and been staying at our house. She was standing at the window when I came in, hand over her mouth. Lorraine was still. The machines had changed their tone. The nurses moved with a different quality of purpose. I took her hand. Still warm, Connie stepped back to give me space. I talked to her. I told her about the morning, the drive over, the way the light looked through the windshield, pale winter light like a watercolor. I told her I'd been reading ahead in Gilead without her, just a few pages, because I couldn't help it. I told her the ornament boxes were in the attic where she left them, and I would bring them down in the spring and go through them, every single one, and I would know which shelf she got each of them on. I told her that what we built together was real and I was not going to forget a single square foot of it. She passed at 6, 47 inches the evening. Connie cried openly. I sat quiet for a long time holding Lorraine's hand after it went still. The machines had been silenced. The room was very quiet. Outside the window, the parking lot lights were coming on one by one in the December dark. I called Marcus at 7:15. Your mother is gone, I said. Silence. She passed an hour ago. His voice broke, just slightly, at the edges. Dad, He didn't finish the sentence. There will be a service on the 29th. Springfield Funeral Home on Lincoln Avenue. 11 in the morning. I'll be there. His voice tight now. Dad, I'm sorry. I should have. I'll see you on the 29th, Marcus. I hung up. He pulled into the driveway on the 26th, 2 days before the service, which told me he'd come early because he wanted to talk first. He knew me well enough for that. He let himself in with his key. I was in the kitchen. He looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. He'd aged something in the face. Or maybe I was just seeing him differently now that I knew what I knew. Dad. He stood in the doorway. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down. He sat. We looked at each other for a moment. I'm sorry I wasn't here, he said. I know it doesn't cover it. No, I said. It doesn't. He looked down at the table. I was going to come. Before Christmas. I kept thinking there was more time. I know what you kept thinking. He looked up. I took a breath. I want to ask you something, and I need you to answer it honestly. When you were in that parking lot at the hospital, the first night, when I was walking out after speaking with Dr. Anand, and you were on the phone, do you remember what you said? Color moved through his face. He knew exactly what I meant. I heard you, Marcus. Dead weight. That's what you said. He pressed his lips together. I was frustrated. I was tired. I didn't mean. You said it. Out loud. About your mother. He didn't answer. There's something in your room, I said. You should go read it before we talk any further. He looked at me for a moment, then pushed back from the table and went upstairs. I refilled my coffee. I didn't move. I listened to his footsteps on the stairs, 14 of them. Then the turn down the hall, then his door pushing open, the light clicking on, 3 seconds of silence, then the sound of paper tearing, then nothing for a long time. Then his footsteps fast on the stairs, and he was standing in the kitchen doorway, holding the papers in both hands. What is this? You know what it is. You disinherited me. I did. Dad, this. His voice went jagged. $640,000. To a library fund, the Lorraine Calloway Library Fund, I said, for school libraries in districts that can't afford books. Your mother spent 37 years believing children should have access to books. Now her name will help make sure they do. He put the papers down on the table between us. His hands were shaking. You can't do this. It's done. December 9th. Diane Wakefield's firm. It's executed and it's final. I'll contest it. That's your right. But I'd encourage you to think carefully before you spend money on lawyers to fight a document that has 2 witnesses, a notary, and was drafted by one of the best estate attorneys in the state. Think also about what a court proceeding would put into the public record. He sat down, or rather, he fell into the chair. He pressed both hands over his face and held them there. I reached into the folder on the counter, began placing printouts on the table between us, one at a time. November 14th, I said. Nashville, Brent's bachelor party. Your mother had been on a ventilator for 9 days. I pointed to the rhinestone shirt. November 15th, Broadway bar. She was in dialysis that morning. November 22nd, Bengals game. I placed it carefully. She asked me that morning why you hadn't called. I told her you were overwhelmed with work. Marcus stared at the growing row of printouts. Thanksgiving, I said. The caption, family isn't always blood. She spent Thanksgiving in a hospital room. Connie brought her pie. I read to her. Stop, he said. His voice was barely there. I kept going. Vermont ski trip, December 14th. She couldn't form sentences longer than a few words that day. December 18th, holiday party. I texted you that morning. Days, Marcus. Not weeks, days. I showed him the phone, the text, the timestamp, his reply 6 hours later saying he was working something out. He was looking at the table, not at the printouts anymore. Just looking at the wood grain like it had something to say. 31 posts, I said. 29 days. 0 calls to her room. 0 calls to the nursing station. 0 calls to her doctor. 3 texts to me. All some version of, I'll try to get there. He put his head down on his arms on the table. His shoulders were shaking. She asked for you every day, I said. Every single day I sat in that room, she asked me when you were coming. And every single day, I lied to her. I said you were busy, you were stressed, you were on your way. I lied to protect her from knowing that her son couldn't be bothered to drive 4 hours. His voice came out muffled against his arms. I didn't know it was going to be that fast. I texted you that it was days. I thought you were upset and overstating. I have never overstated a single medical fact to you in your entire life. He had nothing to say to that because he knew it was true. I stood up, walked to the window. The backyard in December, bare trees, the bird feeder Lorraine filled every week, still full. I'd filled it myself the day after she was admitted. I didn't know why, except that it felt like keeping something going that she'd started. She said your name, I said. I heard the chair move behind me. He was lifting his head. The last day, near the end, she was going in and out. She said your name, not mine, yours. I was there, holding her hand, and she said Marcus. And I told her you were coming. You were almost here. She should wait just a little longer. He made a sound. Not words, just sound. She didn't wait, I said. She couldn't. I turned and looked at him. He was a 58-year-old man, sitting at his parents' kitchen table, with his face in pieces and a stack of vacation photographs in front of him. And I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Not satisfaction, not anger, just sorrow. For what he'd done, for what it had cost all three of us, for the person he'd been once, 12 years old at the Grand Canyon, squinting into the light. The service is the 29th, I said again. You're welcome to come. Dad, he stood up. We don't just, I'm your son. Yes, I said. You are, and your mother loved you completely and without condition until the last hour of her life. And that is a gift you didn't earn and didn't appreciate and can't get back. That's what you have to live with now. That's between you and whatever conscience you've still got. The will stands? The will stands. He picked up his keys from the table. He hadn't even taken his coat off. He stood at the kitchen door for a moment with his back to me. I'm sorry, he said. I need you to know that I know you are, I said. But you're sorry you lost something. You're not sorry she died without you. He left. I heard his car start. I heard it back out of the driveway and disappear down the street. I stood at the kitchen window, looking at the bird feeder for a long time. The service on the 29th was 67 people. The funeral home was full. I hadn't expected that many, but Lorraine had touched a lot of lives in 37 years, and people showed up to say so. Former students from the county jail reading program, 7 of them, sat together in the third row. 3 colleagues from the library, neighbors, friends from the church choir she'd sung in until she got too sick. Connie and her family from Memphis. Marcus came. He sat in the 4th row, not the family row, and he was alone. He had the face of someone enduring something. I spoke about her. I talked about the green dress in Steinbeck and the faculty mixer in 1981. I talked about the jail reading program. I talked about 43 years of filling the bird feeder and arguing about Christmas tree toppers and the complete works of Marilyn Robinson, which we did not finish, but got further than we would have otherwise. I did not mention Marcus. Afterward, people embraced me. The 7 men from the reading program stood in a line, and each of them shook my hand, and one of them, a young man about 30, said, "She changed my whole life. I want you to know that," and I held that sentence in my chest like a coal. Marcus approached me near the end. I let him hug me. I did not hug him back. He noticed. He stepped away. "The fund," he said. "Is it really?" "It's real. Filed with the state. Tax-exempt status approved. First books distributed in February to 11 schools." He nodded. Said nothing. I looked at him for a moment. "Your mother would have forgiven you. I want you to know that. She would have found a way. That was who she was." He waited. "I'm not her," I said. "I'm sorry about that, but I'm not." He drove away that afternoon. I watched from the porch until his car turned the corner. Spring came. I brought the Christmas ornament boxes down from the attic in April, the way I'd told her I would. Went through every one. The ceramic cardinal she'd bought in 1989. The clay handprint Marcus made in 1st grade. The glass icicles from her mother's house. The angel for the top of the tree. I sat on the floor of the living room for a long time with those ornaments around me. Then I packed them carefully, each one in its tissue paper, and put them back in the boxes and carried them back up to the attic. Next December, I would bring them down again. I would put the tree up. I would put the angel on top. I did not know yet if I would do it alone or if something in Marcus would have shifted by then. I received a letter in May from the first school library to receive the fund's books. Attached to it was a photograph. A girl, 10 years old, sitting cross-legged on the library floor, with a brand new copy of a book open in her lap, looking at the pages with an expression I recognized. The same expression Lorraine got when she found something worth reading. That total absorption, that forgetting of everything outside the page. The letter said the child's name was Grace. Her teacher said she'd never voluntarily picked up a book before February. I looked at that photograph for a long time. Then I put it in my wallet, next to the picture of Lorraine at 25 that I've carried for 40 years. Outside, spring was doing what spring does. Birds at the feeder, Light through the kitchen window at a different angle now. Longer days. The world rearranging itself again the way it always does, regardless of what any of us have lost. I poured a cup of coffee, sat in my chair, picked up Gilead from the side table, still bookmarked at the place we'd been when everything changed. Started reading. Her name was on the fund, on the letters going out to 11 schools, on the books arriving in the hands of children she'd never meet. That was real. That would keep being real long after I was gone, too. Justice isn't the same as healing, but it's a place to start. If this story moved you, please subscribe to Stormborn Vengeance and share it with someone who needs to hear it. There are more stories like this one. We'll see you in the next one.